came for me when there was no one left to speak to me. We need justice. We need justice. We need justice. We need justice. வேண்டும் 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 Sri Lankan government, shame on you. Sri Lankan government, Sri Lankan government, shame on you. 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 Justice. We need justice. We need justice. We need justice. We need justice. Stop discrimination. Stop discrimination. Down racism. Down racism. Down racism. Down racism. Down racism. We need justice. We need justice.
இனிமேலும் பொறுக்க முடியாது 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 எரிக்காது 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 பசுக்காது 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 பசுக்காது
வேண்டும் 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 இலங்கை அரசாங்கம் தனது அரசியலமைப்பில் குடிமக்களுக்கு வழங்கி இருக்கின்ற அடிப்படை உரிமையினை மீறி இந்த கொரோனா நோயினால் மரணித்து அல்லது கொரோனா நோயினால் மரணித்திருப்பவர்கள் என்று சந்தேகிக்கின்றவர்களின் உடல்களை புதைக்காமல் தகனம் செய்கின்ற இந்த வன்முறைக்கு எங்களது கண்டனங்களை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கின்றோம். உலகில் உள்ள 192 நாடுகள், அதன் அரசாங்கங்கள், உலக சுகாதார நிறுவனம் இவ்வாறு மரணிப்பவர்களை புதைப்பதற்கு அனுமதி அளித்திருந்தும் இலங்கை அரசாங்கம் மாத்திரம் இவ்வாறு பிடிவாதமாக சிறுபான்மை மக்களின் உரிமையை மீறி ஒடுக்க நினைப்பதை ஒரு இனவாத அரசியல் நடவடிக்கையாகவே நாங்கள் பார்க்கின்றோம். இலங்கை அரசாங்கம் உள்நாட்டில் இருக்கின்ற வைத்தியர்கள் அமைப்பு வைரஸ் தொடர்பான வல்லுநர்கள் மற்றும் பேராசிரியர்களின் கருத்துக்களை புறக்கணித்திருக்கின்றது. இலங்கை அரசாங்கம் இலங்கை முஸ்லிம் மற்றும் கத்தோலிக்க சமூக சிறுபான்மை மக்களின் பிரதிநிதிகளை தலைவர்களின் கோரிக்கைகளை தூக்கி எறிந்திருக்கின்றது. இலங்கை அரசாங்கம் இலங்கையின் மனித உரிமை ஆணைக்குழுவின் ஆலோசனையையும் பாராளுமன்றத்தில் இது தொடர்பாக அழுத்தம் கொடுக்கின்ற கௌரவ பாராளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர்களின் பேச்சுக்களையும் அவமதித்திருக்கின்றது. இலங்கை அரசாங்கம் பல நாட்டு அரசாங்கங்களின் கோரிக்கைகளையும் வெளிநாட்டில் இருக்கின்ற பல நாட்டு தூதுவர்களின் கடிதங்களையும் நிராகரித்திருக்கின்றது. இலங்கை அரசாங்கம் உயர்நீதிமன்றம் இப்பிரச்சனை தொடர்பாக தாக்கல் செய்யப்பட்ட வழக்குகளை தள்ளுபடி செய்துள்ளது. இலங்கை அரசாங்கம் ஐக்கிய நாடுகள் சபையின் பிரசிடென்ட் கோஆர்டினேட்டர், சர்வதேச மனித உரிமை அமைப்புகள், சர்வதேச ஊடகங்கள், புலம்பெயர் அமைப்புகள், புத்திஜீவிகள் அமைப்புகள், மத நல்லிண அமைப்புகள் என அத்தனை பேர்களின் கோரிக்கையினையும் புறக்கணித்திருக்கின்றது. இலங்கையின் தற்போதைய ஆட்சியாளர்களின் இந்த இனவாத முட்டாள்தனமான நடவடிக்கையால் இலங்கை நாடு சர்வதேசத்தில் அவமானப்பட்டுக் கொண்டிருப்பதை பார்த்துக் கொண்டிருக்க முடியாது. மக்களுக்காக ஆட்சி நடத்த வேண்டிய அரசாங்கம் மக்களின் உரிமைகளை பறிக்கின்ற, அவர்களை உடனடியாக பாதிப்படைய வைக்கின்ற இந்த கொடுமையினை உடனடியாக நிறுத்த வேண்டும். இலங்கையில் மரணிக்கின்ற முஸ்லிம் மற்றும் கத்தோலிக்க மக்களின் உடல்களை எரிக்காமல் புதைப்பதற்கு அனுமதி அளிக்க வேண்டும். அதுவரை இந்த போராட்டம் தொடரும். We need justice. 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 Justice. We need 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 justice.
எரிக்காது 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 எரிக்காது
எம் உறவுகளை எரிக்காது,
பசுக்காது பசுக்காது
உறவுகளை பொசுக்காது, தீயிலிட்டு பொசுக்காது. My dear friends, I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees, said the Mexican revolutionary Emiliano Zapata. The decision by Sri Lankan government to cremate all COVID-19 related death with no sensitivity to ethnic minorities and their basic human rights has distressed many Sri Lankans all across the world. Had there been a valid reason for the such cremation, peace-loving Sri Lankan Muslims wouldn't object to such a decision but would also extend their fullest cooperation. However, despite evidence produced by WHO as well as Sri Lankan and international experts, the government continues its discriminatory and racist politics towards Muslims. The systematic racism unleashed on Muslims in places like hospitals have become unprecedented. Not only they are forcibly cremating COVID victims, they are also conspiring to cremate Muslims who die of other causes. Recently, a government hospital conspired to cremate a Muslim man who died of a renal failure. A woman who died of heart failure was cremated. A 20-day-old baby who had died for pneumonia was cremated without the consent of the parents. Man, woman or child, no one is safe from the institutionalized racism in Sri Lanka. All this while WHO strongly suggests burial is burial of COVID-19 disease doesn't cause any environmental issue, let alone contamination. The fake scientist Channa Pereira said Muslims can't try to use the dead bodies as biological weapons. Muslims can't try to use the dead bodies as biological weapons. The fear-mongering government of Sri Lanka should stop their anti-Muslim fake news propaganda. It is propaganda based on false assumption that burial of COVID-19 victims results in contamination of groundwater. Government of Sri Lanka, if you have proof, present your proof to the world. And we demand evidence for all these claims. If there is none, then they must abide by the international rules and guidelines which are followed by over 185 countries, or face international justice for the crimes they are committing. Our request is not to perform the last ritual to the dead body. We are not demanding the corpse to be handed over to us either. All we demand is allow what the rest of the world, including UK, had allowed, which is the right of a person who died to be disposed according to his or her belief. In other words, we are asking our dignity to be restored. We urge the government of Sri Lanka to allow the rights of minorities by allowing them to bury their loved ones. Don't witch hunt your opponents to cover your failings. We are not scapegoats to be used in your political games, and we ask our non-Muslim brothers and sisters to stand with us in this fight for our rights. I quote Martin Niemöller to end my speech. First, they came for the socialist, and I didn't speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I didn't speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak to me.
ඔබ සැමට අල්ලා දෙවියන්ගේ සාමය දයාව සහ ආශිර්වාද වේවා. අස්සලාමු අලයිකුම් වරහ්මතුල්ලාහි වබරකාතුහු. සියලුම ලාංකික සහෝදරවරුනි, මිත්‍රවරුනි, ඔබ කවුරුත් අද මෙතන රැස් වෙලා ඉන්නේ යුක්තිය වෙනුවෙන්, සාදරය වෙනුවෙන්. අපේ ලංකාවේ ඉන්න මුස්ලිම් හා ක්‍රිස්තියානු කොවිඩ් ආසාදිත මරණයන් ආදානය කිරීමට එරෙහිව ඒ වගේම ජාතිවාදීන් විසින්
Those are in this side, please. Cross over to the other side, please. Unless if you are media or if you have anything to do. Please.
ජාතිවාදී විසින් මුරණ්ඩු ලෙස පුලුස්සා දැමීමට එරෙහිව සටන් කිරීමට අරමුණෙන් හා ලෝකයාට
Brothers, I'm saying again and again, could you please cross over to the other side?
ලෝකයාට අපේ අහිංසක අම්මලාට, අපේ අහිංසක තාත්තලාට, අපේ අහිංසක සහෝදරවරුන්ට, අපේ අහිංසක දවස් 20ක්වත් මේ ලෝකේ ජීවත් වුණු කුඩා දරුවන්ට, අපේ අහිංසක මිනිස්සුන්ට වෙච්ච
முடியாது இனிமேலும் பொறுக்க முடியாது. இலங்கை அரசு
It is continuing. So the message from me, I don't want to miss any point you need to take. So the community in Sri Lanka, please listen carefully, and also community all over the world, please give the attentive ears. Because this cry is not my cry or the parents' cry. This is the cry from the children. And I want you to think about all the children who are in Sri Lanka, especially those are Muslims. Psychologically, how much they are in the sad moment. It's not easy for me and you to describe until I am in that position. When we put their shoes only, we can feel it, we can grieve, and this is the reason it's very important. My message, it is not only for Muslim Ummah and also for the nation of Sri Lanka. Especially when we look at Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka's development is a decline. What is the reason? Not the Muslim, not the Tamils, not the Christians, not the Hindus, not the Buddhists, but the extremist elements of any part of political thing. This is going to allowing for few years now, and we can see decline is inevitable.
Stop! 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 stop. Down, down, racism. 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 We need justice. We need justice. We need justice.
அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். நான் இலங்கை கத்தோலிக்க திருச்சபை சார்பாக நமது ஸ்ரீலங்கா இஸ்லாமிய சமூகத்தவரின் துயர நிகழ்வுக்கு அனுதாபமும் ஆதரவும் தெரிவிக்க வந்துள்ளேன். கத்தோலிக்க மதத்தின்படியும் எமது உடல் இறுதியில் அடக்கம் செய்யப்படுகின்றது. எங்களது நம்பிக்கை விசுவாசம் நாங்கள் இறந்து ஒரு நாள் நாங்கள் உயிர் தெழுவோம் என்று. ஒரு காலத்தில் எமது உடலை எரிக்க முற்பட்டார்கள். யார் அவர்கள் என்றால், உயிர்த்தெழுதல் இல்லை என்று எண்பிக்க வேண்டும் என்பதற்காக உடலை எரிக்க வேண்டும் என்றார்கள் ஒரு குறிப்பிட்ட பகுதியினர். அதற்காக வேண்டி கத்தோலிக்க மதம் திரும்பவும் ஆணித்தரமாக எமது உடல்கள் அடக்கம் பண்ணப்பட வேண்டும் என்று இன்று வரை உறுதியாக உள்ளது. இதன் அடிப்படையில் எல்லா மதத்துக்கும் ஒரு நம்பிக்கை விசுவாசம் உண்டு. அதை முதலாவதாக அந்தந்த அரசாங்கங்கள் மதிக்க வேண்டும். அது ஒரு அடிப்படை உரிமை என்பதை ஏற்றுக்கொள்ள வேண்டும். இன்று நடந்த விவகாரங்களில் அண்மையில் மட்டக்களப்பு பாராளுமன்ற உறுப்பினர் பேசியது ஏன் எல்லோரின் இதயத்தை தாக்கினதென்றால், அவர் மிகவும் விரயமாக கெஞ்சினார் பாராளுமன்றத்திலே, இந்த இஸ்லாமியர்களுக்கு கடைசி சடங்கியாவது செய்ய விடுங்கள். லாஸ்ட் ரைட், they are claiming for the last right. அதுதான் எல்லோருடைய மனதையும் தொட்டது என்று மல்கம் ரஞ்சித் ஆண்டகை அவர்கள் ஈஸ்டர் குண்டு தாக்குதலுக்கு நியாயம் கேட்கின்றார், நீதி கேட்கின்றார். அது உண்மையான விவகாரம். அவர் கேட்க வேண்டிய நீதி. கத்தோலிக்கர்கள் இறந்தார்கள் ஆலயங்களில். ஆனால் இன்று இந்த இஸ்லாமிய மக்களுக்கு அடக்கம் மறுக்கப்பட்ட போது ஏன் அவரது குரல் வரவில்லை? ஏனைய தமிழ் ஆயர்களும் ஏன் இன்னும் அரசாங்கத்திடம் இதன் சம்பந்தமாக விண்ணப்பிக்கவில்லை என்று நாங்கள் கத்தோலிக்க மக்கள் கேட்கின்றோம். இங்கே குழம்பி இருக்கும் இஸ்லாமிய சகோதரர்களுக்கு நான் சொல்லுகின்றேன், நீங்கள் சற்று பிந்திவிட்டீர்கள், லேட் என்று சொல்லலாம். அதாவது ஈஸ்டர் குண்டு தாக்குதல் உங்களுக்கு முதலாவது போட்ட ஒரு பந்து. இப்போது அடுத்த பந்து உங்களது அடிப்படை உரிமை, அதுவும் சிறப்பான மதத்தை தாக்குகின்ற அடிப்படையான உரிமையை அவர்கள் அடுத்த பந்தாக பாவிக்கின்றார்கள். ஆகவே நாங்கள் இனிமேலும் பொறுத்துக் கொள்ள முடியாது. இதை சர்வதேச சமூகத்திடம், குறிப்பாக முஸ்லிம் நாடுகள் அனைவரிடமும் இதை கொண்டு சேர்க்க வேண்டும். இலங்கை அரசாங்கத்திற்கு அழுத்தத்தை கொடுக்க வேண்டும். சகல முஸ்லிம் நாடுகள் ஊடாக என்று கேட்டுக்கொண்டு எனது ஆசையுடன் எனது பேச்சை பிடித்துக் கொள்கின்றேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
Thank you very much.
Fundamental rights, respect, respect. 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 Basic 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 rights, respect, respect. Religious rights, respect, respect. Religious rights, respect, respect. Religious rights, respect, respect. Respect, respect. We need justice. We need justice. We need justice. We need justice. Universal Human Rights Council, based in Geneva. So the brother Muiz Wahabdin has sent this statement to read it out in this protest. Dear brothers, sisters,
Brother,
friends,
can you maintain
Assalamu
your distance,
alaikum.
please?
May peace be upon you. We are
Maintain
gathered
the
here today
distance.
to express our anger, horror and disgust
Maintain
about
your
the
distance.
most cruel and lowly practice of Sri Lankan government and its so-called scientific advisors. That is so forcibly burning the bodies of Muslims and Christian victims of COVID-19. Since March this year, since the first COVID victim died, Sri Lankan government has forcibly cremated dozens of bodies of victims despite protests, pleas and appeals of not only the victims' families but of the entire international community. Cremation is against our faith. Losing a loved one is a misery big enough for the families. On top of that, forcibly preventing them from giving the last respect to their loved ones has added to the psychological trauma and shock. This is not only a despicable act that goes against all moral values and civilized behavior. It is a violation of the right to the practice and manifest religious beliefs. It is a suppression of the rights of minorities. The United Nations has written to the government of Sri Lanka to stop this inhuman practice. The Organization for Islamic Cooperation has written to the government. International human rights organizations such as Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International and have asked them to stop it. And civil society organizations like People's Rights Group and Universal Human Rights Council have asked them. But they are not continuing their immoral operations of minorities. The WHO in guidelines has allowed burial as a method of disposing bodies of COVID-19 victims. More than 190 countries allowed burial of COVID-19 victims. We ask the government of Sri Lanka, why can't you allow innocent victims to pay the last respect to their death according to their faith? Why can't you act as civilized government? What pleasure do you get from oppressing minorities? You killed innocent minority Tamil civilians during the war and got away with it. Now you are oppressing the minority Muslims. We know it has now become an irresistible habit to oppress minorities in your country. Please don't think you can do it all the time. One day you will face international justice. Sri Lanka, stop forced cremation. Sri Lanka, stop violating human rights of minorities. International community, speak up against this violation.
Hello everybody, Assalamu alaikum, Wanakam, Aibawan. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to address a very imminent question here. We as brothers and sisters, somehow related to Sri Lanka, have gathered here to protest against a violation of fundamental rights of minorities. So I'd like to make a short speech on this, addressing three fundamental aspects. First thing is, why cremation is a big deal? Why are we protesting? There's hundreds and thousands of people are cremated every day in the world. So the difference is that those people who are cremated with their own last wish or the wish of their family members. So their fundamental right is preserved and honored, and that is the point we are trying to make here. As Muslims, I'm not only talking for Muslims, I'm talking for Muslims, Catholics and Christians and those who believe burial is a fundamental right. And for that group of people, it is their last wish. You know, according to Muslims, they live their life according to their religion. They're respected for their religion and the rights they implement into the society. Hence, they want to be buried. So there are four aspects of their last rights. And the fourth aspect is burial. Now, COVID-19, of course, it's a big concern for everybody, every country, every health authority in the world. We are here today in the UK we had initially been suggested that all bodies were cremated, but when the scientific evidence was put forward to the parliament, it was accepted that according to the science, there is no real evidence to say the bodies have to be cremated. Because you go back to the principles and just go back into the fundamentals. What is it that we are dealing with COVID-19? We are dealing with a virus which has got a protein code. I'm not going to go into the scientific aspect of this, but just giving you a brief summary about that this virus cannot survive outside a living body. So these facts, the scientific facts, which starting from the hydrologists who know how the water system works under the earth, the virologists who deal with the viruses, who know details of the life cycle of virus and its structures and its molecular levels, and also the common physicians, the way rights and oppress them to adhere to the community well-being. It doesn't work like that. What works is you respect people, you respect their rights, and you make measures for those communities to adhere together. So that understanding is what's going to take a country forward, and Sri Lanka badly needs that unity back. Everybody had such a great view and vision about Sri Lanka since the LTT problem was over. We thought that the new government will bring peace, it will bring more prosperity to the country. Now, whether knowingly or unknowingly, the government is letting this peace and the future slip into the hand of the Buddhist fundamentalists. Only less than 5% of the countries. Usually the Buddhists are very peace living. They are very easy to get on with. They are very understanding and they are very accommodating. Why are we letting this 5% of the culprits ruin the harmony of the country? And it is in the hands of the government. I would like to humbly request the government and the president himself to look at the longer vision of that and take measures to improve the harmony by first as a hallmark of that harmony to allow the cremation to go ahead. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Aibowan Manakam.
Here we go, we have the virologist, we have the clinical technician in the medical field. So we have WHO, we have every evidence you can ever have, and still you reject and refuse the truth. So it is time for you to open your eyes like the other 180 countries that over there. You're not living in the moon, on the moon. You're not living on another planet. You are in this world with another 180 countries. They also have COVID patients. They also have COVID deaths. And they are burying. And what's wrong with you? What is wrong with you?
Brothers, we have received support and solidarity from all over the world. Different organizations, different individuals, human rights organizations, they all supporting us. Now we received another statement from South Asian Solidarity Group. They sent a statement to read it out.
We at South Asia Solidarity Group stand in solidarity with the Muslim, Christian and Catholic communities in Sri Lanka who are at present facing thoroughly inhuman and arbitrary policy laid down by Sri Lankan government, which outlaws burial and imposes mandatory cremation of people who are believed to have died of COVID-19 infections. The change in policy was sudden and deployed without any transparency or reliable scientific justification. The death of a loved one, especially during this time of the pandemic, whether by COVID or otherwise, has now begun to strike fear into the hearts of persons belonging to minority communities. Mourning and grieving for their loved ones has become a fraught political issue, provoking great pain and anger among Muslims and Christians. The deployment of this policy has resulted in a range of arbitrary practices, such as taking the body of the dead person summarily from the person's home to the police march, or not even allowing the family any form of funeral rites at time of cremating it before the COVID-19 test results are even available, and even cremating those who are not COVID positive. The invasion by the state into the private grief of minority community members, in particular the Muslim community, appears vengeful, and it's clear such a policy is being carried out to appease extremist Sinhala Buddhist opinion, which was already targeting the Muslim community as the spreaders of the COVID-19 virus in Sri Lanka. We are told that the experts committee set up by the government for this purpose has recommended this change in policy. But this committee has publicly criticized by the country's leading epidemiologists and virologists, who were not invited to sit on the expert committee. The WHO has clearly stated that burial are safe. Several other UN bodies and international human rights organizations and the Human Rights Commission of Sri Lanka have invoked international conventions on religious freedoms and right of religious practice and have asked the government to desist from forcible cremation against the wishes of religious minorities, especially since such a policy has no scientific basis. Many civil society and religious groups within the country have also appealed to the government but to not avail. This will inevitably polarize the different communities even further, but we see the total indifference to the concerns of the minority communities on the part of the Sri Lankan majority and government. After the end of the long civil war of the 30 years, which was vast number of Tamil civilians persist, the majority and state turning to attention of the Muslim community. Many of its policies have had the effect of harassing the persecution of the Muslim minority community, especially in orders to appease the Sringala Buddhist nationalist vote bank it has nurtured. The election of the president and the current parliament have triggered the dramatic politicization of the administrative organs of the state and the judiciary at such a rapid rate in service of the executive. The 20th Amendment to the Sri Lankan Constitution, which became law recently, consolidates virtually all the state's power in the hands of the president, rendering even parliament in a subordinate institution. This leaves very little space for democratic forces in the country to challenge this form of unleavened power. The applications by 11 families seeking legal remedy to issue of forcible cremation to the Supreme Court have been turned down by a majority of judges on the bench of proceed to further for a substantive hearing. Having been frustrated in their efforts to take forward a legal challenge to this draconian policy, the community is gradually turning to form a civil disobedience, where people are refusing to pay for the cremation as demanded by the government, and are also beginning to refuse the ashes following cremation. Such is the trauma felt with the communities. The mandatory cremation policy is yet another step in the majority agenda of the current government, rendering life of minority communities in Sri Lanka quite intolerable. We voice our opposition to this cruel and unnecessary mandating of cremation and stand in solidarity with the minority communities of Sri Lanka. We also stand in solidarity with those voices in Sri Lanka which are challenging majoritarianism and the growing authoritarianism through the concentration of the power in executive institutions by South Asia Solidarity Group. We need
Justice! 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 Justice!
श्रीलंकन मुसलमान के जो जायज हकूक है, मजहबी हकूक है, उसको पालन करे. शुक्रिया. मासलाम ब्रदर and sister from Sri Lanka. Shukran.
Thank you very much, Brother Saud. Respect, respect fundamental rights. Respect, respect. Respect, respect. Respect, respect. Respect, respect. Respect, respect. Epa, epa. Epa, epa. Epa, epa.
Almighty Allah gives us details even of the development of the fetus in the human body. We have so much of details about the greatness of the Creator, just like how when a person passes away, it does not matter what happens in the time, in the stages, in the qabr, in the grave, because that is barzakh. Our duty is just like how we have to take care of humanity, just like how we have to honor the children of Adam. In the same way, when a person dies, we need to give that honor, we need to give that respect, we need to show even so much care for the deceased that the Prophet ﷺ is saying, for that person who participates in the burial of a person, he gets the reward of the size of a mountain. Qirat, just imagine. So therefore, when we are lowering our deceased in the grave, we feel and we know that there is another journey, the journey of the soul after life. And therefore, it's very painful to hear the discrimination that is happening there in Sri Lanka, the only government in the world even going against. Where is the evidence that the pandemic or the virus spreads from a deceased? How can we use this as an excuse to show and to dishonor the dignity of the life of the family of the human being? So we hope and we pray that you're coming here together and we're standing here together, showing our support, solidarity. Yes, we have to stand united. Yes, we have to honor our deceased. Yes, we have to honor the children, the babies, and it is really, really a great painful ordeal for the family to have to go and to witness their own beloved baby being cremated. So let's pray that Almighty Allah Ta'ala bring about this change on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, that yes, like how you are standing here, yes, this action of yours is going to be rewarded, because do not belittle any action. You're standing here, you're coming together on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah. It will bear testimony, this ground in front of the Sri Lankan embassy. You have brought this message very clear that the Muslim, wherever he is, in any part of the world, he has the rulings can never change. There is no place of cremation in our deen. There is no place of cremation in our Islam. Therefore, we say, let's give the rights.
My sisters and brothers from Sri Lanka, I'm here to support all of you, and especially what's going on in Sri Lanka.
You see, the government of Sri Lanka, they are giving a double problem, double suffering, double pain to these Muslim parents. Because every religion have their own rights to bury their dead bodies according to their religions. Look at even Jews or Christianity or other religions. They can do their own practice according to their religions. But we can't understand why the Sri Lankan government doing all these things with the Muslim people. And we know that we have our own religion practice. I think I don't want to go in a technical matters, because a lot of people, they already explained all these technical reasons about the COVID. I want to appeal UK government, and especially Mr. Prime Minister Boris Johnson, that he can put pressure on government of Sri Lanka to stop all this discrimination with kids and with Muslim and with all other religions. I'm all with you and my all heart and my all prayers for you, Sri Lankan people. Good luck for you.
Respect, 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 respect. Stop, stop, forced cremation, stop, stop, forced cremation, stop, stop, forced cremation. Since March this year, since the first COVID victim died, Sri Lankan government has possibly cremated dozens of bodies of victims, despite protests, pleas and appeals of not only the victims' families, but of the entire international community. Cremation is against our faith. Losing a loved one is a miserable enough for the families. On top of that, forcibly preventing them from giving the last respect to their loved ones has added to the psychological trauma and shock. This is not only a despicable act that goes against all moral values and civilized behavior. It is a violation of the right to the practice and manifest religious beliefs. It is a suppression of the rights of minorities. The United Nations has written to the government of Sri Lanka to stop this inhuman practice. The Organization for Islamic Cooperation has written to the government. International human rights organizations such as Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and have asked them to stop it. And civil society organizations like People's Rights Group and Universal Human Rights Council have asked them that they are not continuing their immoral operations of minorities. The WHO in guidelines has allowed burial as a method of disposing bodies of COVID-19 victims. More than 190 countries allowed burial of COVID-19 victims. We ask the government of Sri Lanka.
Assalamu alaikum. Fratelli e sorelle, inshallah, avrei due o tre messaggi da dare a tutti coloro che sono qua presenti, ma anche a tutti coloro che li stanno vedendo e ascoltando da tutto il mondo. Il primo messaggio è quello di solidarietà che dobbiamo avere nei confronti del popolo musulmano in Sri Lanka. Ma più che solidarietà, qua c'è da capire che le persone stanno soffrendo. Le persone stanno soffrendo, come diceva il fratello prima, non solo per il coronavirus, ma anche perché in Sri Lanka le persone sono sotto oppressione, sono discriminate, perché l'Organizzazione Mondiale della Sanità cosa dice? Che le persone che muoiono per via del coronavirus possono essere seppellite o cremate, non c'è differenza e non c'è nessun problema. Ma cosa fa il governo del Sri Lanka? Crema tutti quanti. Questa è una forma di ingiustizia che il mondo intero sta...
Sri Lankan government! Following WHO guidelines! Sri Lankan government! Following WHO guidelines! Sri Lankan government!
Hello. Sri Lankan government, shame on you. Sri Lankan government. 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 Stop.
Post-cremation.
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 Stop.
අපි අද මෙතන රැස් වෙලා ඉන්නේ මුස්ලිම් වරුන් හැටියට, ලාංකිකයන් හැටියට, ඒ වගේම අපි මෙතන රැස් වෙලා ඉන්නේ කිසිම ජාතිවාදී පදනමකින් තොරව අපිට එකම ඉල්ලීම මේ ආදාහනේ නවත්තන්නේ කියලා. ඒ ඉල්ලීම තමයි අපේ එකම බලාපොරොත්තුව. දැන් මෙතෙන්දී අපි කිසිම වෙන ඉල්ලීමක් නෙවෙයි අපේ එකම බලාපොරොත්තුව. දැන් මේක සිංහල බෞද්ධ ජනතාව තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ. විශේෂයෙන් අපි දන්නවා දැන් ජාතිවාදී පදනම් මත එක දේශපාලන පක්ෂයන් බිහුණා. 1947 ඉඳලා අපි මොනවද ලබා ගත්තේද? අපි ලබා ගත්තේ යුද්ධ ලබා ගත්තා. පන්ති පදනම් මත අරගලයන් ලබා ගත්තා. ඒක සිංහල බෞද්ධ ජනතාව තේරුම් ගත යුතුයි. අද අපිට මේ කරන අත්ත වශයෙන්ම කාලකන්ණි ක්‍රියාව ඒක පාරවල්ලක් වෙන්නේ ඊට පස්සේ සිංහල ජනතාවටමයි. අපි ඒ අත්දැකීමෙන් දන්නවා අපේ ඉතිහාසය. 1971 කැරල්ල, 1988-89 කැරල්ල, ඒ අරගලය ඒ සිංහල බෞද්ධ ජනතාවම තුලින්ම මතුණු අරගලයක්. දැන් අපි මෙතනදී අපිට අද හම්බ වෙන ප්‍රහාරය ඒක ආයිත් පාරවල්ලක් වෙන්නේ ඒක ජාතිවාදී පරිණාමයේ සිංහලයන් ඇතුළත පන්ති ભેදයක් ලෙස තමයි ඇති වෙන්නේ. ඒ හින්දා අපි මේ පූර්වාදර්ශය මෙතනින් නවත්තන්න ඕන. අපි දන්නවා 1947 ඉඳලා එක් පන්ති පාලනය, එක් පෞල් පාලනය තමයි තියෙන්නේ. ඒක සිංහල ජනතාව තේරුම් ගත යුතුයි. දැන් මෙතෙන්දී දැන් සෞඛ්‍ය පදනම ගත්තත් අපි නිකන් හිතලා බැලුවත් දැන් අපේ දරජාතික නිෂ්පාදිතයෙන් කීයට වෙන් කරන්නේ මේ සෞඛ්‍ය සඳහා 3.5යි. ඇෆ්ගනිස්තානෙම වෙන් කරනවා 8ක් විතර. ඒකම තේරුම් ගන්න යුතුයි. දැන් අපි දන්නවා මේ 1948 ඉඳලා එක බෝතලේ වලව්ව, ඒ වගේම මැද මුලන වලව්ව, එහෙම නැත්නම් කොල්ල පිටිය වලව්ව, ඒ වගේ පෞල් පාලනය තමයි තිබුණේ. අද තියෙන මැද මුලන වලව්ව. ඒ පෞල් අතර යන්නේ. ඒගොල්ලන්ගේ අධ්‍යාපනය වුණත් ඒගොල්ලන්ටම යොමු වුණ අධ්‍යාපනයක් කියන්නේ අපිට නැහැ. ඒ වගේ දේවල් සාමාන්‍ය ජනතාවට නැහැ. ඒව සිංහල බෞද්ධ ජනතාව තේරුම් ගත යුතුයි. අද මේ දවස් 20ක ළමයි, දවස් 20ක දරුවෙක් කිසිම හිතක් පපුවක් නැතුව පුච්චල දාලා තියෙනවා. දැන් එතකොට ඒකෙන් සිංහල බෞද්ධ ජනතාවට උනත් සතුටක් ලබන්න බෑ. ඒක තේරුම් ගන්න ඕනේ. ඒ කියන්නේ මම ඉස්සෙල්ලා කිව්වා වගේ ඒ පාරවලක් වෙන්නේ ඔයගොල්ලෝටම තමයි. මේක කිසිම ජාතිවාදයක් නැතුව ලාංකිකයන් හැටියට අපි එකතු වෙන්න මේවට විරුද්ධ වෙන්න ඕන. ඒ සඳහා කිසිම ජාති ආගම් කුල ભેදයකින් තොරව අපි සමග එකතු වෙලා මේ කරන ඇත්ත වශයෙන් නීච කාලකන්ණි ක්‍රියාව නවත්තන්නේ කියලා ඉල්ලා සිටිමින් මම නවතින. MCB, Muslim Council of Britain, responds to forced cremation of Sri Lanka who have died COVID-19 in Sri Lanka. News of the Sri Lankan government mandating the cremation of all those who have died in COVID-19 is deeply concerning. The policy contravenes upon the rights and religious beliefs of Muslims in Sri Lanka and is contrary to the prevailing scientific opinion on the matter. Robust protocols allowing for the safe, strict and Sharia compliant burial of Muslims have been developed and implemented by Muslim communities varying largely the world over.
இலங்கை அரசே 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 இலங்கை அரசே.
My opinion is it's incredibly unfair what's happening in Sri Lanka, and they shouldn't be taking away people's human rights. If people want to get cremated, they should be allowed. But if people want to be buried, that should also be allowed. And they're not, they're not basing anything on scientific facts. It's all just the government or pressure groups saying that people should be cremated. But there's no scientific evidence to take away Muslims' right for burial. And also, one of the speakers said that, it will have a psychological effect on Muslims who won't be allowed to mourn in the way that, their religion says. And also, as a human being, if you want your loved one to be buried and they're cremated instead, and you don't get that closure and you don't get that sense that, you can go visit their grave, and that right has been taken away.
இது அநியாயம் இழைக்கப்பட்டவனின் அழுகுரல். இந்த அழுகுரலுக்கும் அந்த அரசுக்கும் இடையில் ஒன்றும் அத்தனை தூரமில்லை. அன்னார்ந்து பார்ப்பவனுக்குத்தான் ஆகாயம் மேலே தெரியும். நாள்தோறும் ஐவேளை சுஜூதில் விழுபவனுக்கு அது நெற்று நிலத்தில் தொடும் தூரத்திலேயே விரியும். இது அநியாயம் இழைக்கப்பட்டவனின் அழுகுரல். இந்த அழுகுரலுக்கும் அந்த அரசுக்கும் இடையில் ஒன்றும் அத்தனை தூரமில்லை. கொரோனாவின் பெயர் சொல்லி எங்களை எரிக்கிறீர்கள். அல்லாஹ்வின் பெயர் சொல்லி நாங்கள் அழைக்கின்றோம். சாவில் கூட உரிமை மறுக்கப்பட்டவர்களாய் எம்மை தூக்கி எறிகிறீர்கள். மண்ணுக்கு சொந்தமானவர்கள் நாங்கள். மையவாடிகள் எமக்காக காத்திருக்கும் போது எம்மை ஏன் நெருப்போடு ஏன் வழி அனுப்புகிறீர்கள்? தகனத்திற்குள் தள்ளி எமது சுவனத்திற்கு எதற்கு நெருப்பு தேடிக்கொள் என்று நிர்பந்தம் செய்கிறீர்கள். பள்ளே உழைக்காத 20 நாள் பிள்ளையை கூட நெருப்பிலிட்டு மகிழ்ச்சி அடைந்தீர்கள். புத்தரை போற்றும் பூமியில் தானா இத்தனையும் நடக்கிறது? வியப்பாய் இருக்கிறது. கூறுங்கள், கொரோனாவை நாங்களா விதைத்தோம்? ஏன் எங்களை முறைக்கிறீர்கள்? வைரஸ்களை நாங்களா வளர்த்தோம்? ஏன் எங்களை வதைக்கிறீர்கள்? கிருமிகளை நாங்களா கொண்டு வந்தோம்? எங்களை ஏன் இருக்கிறீர்கள்? நீங்கள் மூட்டும் நெருப்பில் உங்களுக்கு வெளிச்சம் தெரிகிறதா? எங்களுக்கு இருட்டுத்தான் தெரிகிறது. நீங்கள் தேடி பிடிக்கும் காரணங்களில் உங்களுக்கு வெற்றி தெரிகிறதா? எங்களுக்கு தோல்வி தெரிகிறது. நீங்கள் தந்த தீர்ப்பில் உங்களுக்கு நியாயம் தெரிகிறதா? எங்களுக்கு அநியாயம் தெரிகிறது. எங்கள் கடவுள் மேல் உங்களுக்கு நம்பிக்கை இல்லாதிருக்கலாம். எங்கள் கண்ணீர் மேல் உங்களுக்கு கருணை பொங்காதிருக்கலாம். எங்கள் பச்சிளம் குழந்தைகளின் இறப்பின் மீதோ அல்லது கூன் விழுந்த பாட்டியின் சடலத்தின் மீதோ எந்தவித அன்போ அனுதாபமோ உங்களிடம் சுரக்காமல் போகலாம். ஆனால் எங்களுக்கு தெரியும், ஏந்தும் எம் கரங்கள் வெறுங்கையாய் திரும்ப போவதில்லை. அழும் எம் உள்ளங்கள் அனாதரவாய் ஆகப் போவதில்லை. வெடிக்கும் எம் நெஞ்சங்கள் வீணாய் பொறுங்கி வீழப் போவதில்லை. பாராளுமன்றத்தில் கேட்டோம், கிடைக்கவில்லை. நீதிமன்றத்தில் கேட்டோம், கிடைக்கவில்லை. அல்லாஹ்விடம் கேட்கின்றோம், கிடைக்கும். ஆமாம், அரசுக்கு கேட்காதது இன்ஷா அல்லாஹ் அரசுக்கும் கேட்கும்.